Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People's Show. Check the post for Husker Nation. Brought to you by Nebraska Spine Hospital. Today I'm joined by former Husker Jason Peter. How you doing, Jason?
I'm good. How are you, Adam?
Hey, man, considering there's absolutely nothing unusual at all about this year, it's completely 100% normal. I'm doing pretty awesome. But
yeah, I know it's been crazy. A lot of bad, I guess you could say. I know we were all hoping for a better fall here, but life goes on.
Yeah, a lot of interesting things for sure. So let's hop into it. What do you attribute the Huskers 1-4 start to? Obviously, Scott Frost 10-19 is record so far here in Nebraska. I know I'm surprised by some of this. You know, there's a building process to this, but I know I'm surprised. But what would you attribute that to? And in your opinion, what needs to happen to turn the direction of this program around?
Yeah, I mean, I would have hoped, I guess, that some of these close games, the ones that are coming down to the wire, that the ability to know how to win would have started to kind of, take place, and that mentality, we always hear that C word, culture being talked about, and just the way that things that these kids are able to handle themselves over the course of a game. And so that's, I think, the disappointing, the not just the soul, area that is disappointing, but I think the big one for sure, it comes down to, how it is, it's the little things, man. And not being able to get the snap back to the quarterback, some of these dumb penalties that are away from the ball that have no impact, on the play being run or the play being successful, and they're just not good enough to be able to start off drives 1st and 15, 1st and 20. And it's not just the yardage then, it's just that mindset that, okay, well, we haven't even really started the drive. We try to on one play, and now we're already going backwards. When you look at the whole thing going back to spring ball, I mean, this is a young staff with a lot of young players, and when you don't get those those practices in the spring, and then you combine that with with what happened then in the fall, and this season being canceled, it's tough.
I do think you make a good point about, and obviously, dude, I'm coaching elementary school football, but you get into a rhythm as a play caller, and you make a great point. All of a sudden, 1st and 15, 1st and 20, now you have a completely different mindset as a play caller. You're out of rhythm, things of that nature. I think that's a fair point amongst the other points you made. Now, we've heard several times from Frost, from some of the players, from the coaches that, okay, what they see every day during the week is promising and they're getting closer, but it doesn't seem to translate to game days on Saturdays, certainly not at this point. Now, you're around the program and the coaches. What do you see during the week, and why do you think it isn't translating to game days on Saturday?
So normally I'd be able to answer that question, but really since this whole thing, COVID thing hit in March, they've kind of been in the quote-unquote bubble, right? So I haven't been down there. I haven't been down there once at all this entire year. So I haven't been able to see anything that's going on in the day-to-day, but just, communicating with some of these guys and Scott. And, I think it's just they just, I'm not making any excuses up. I just think the kids, and it's not all on them. There have been several games, I think, where you can easily kind of flip the script and look back at, the calls and who's sending those in, and the game management, clock management, all that stuff. It's certainly, there's enough blame to go around, or responsibility. I think that they can all kind of raise their hand and say, well, I didn't do I didn't do my part, but, you know, from just kind of a former player's perspective and looking at it, you know, from the outside, I don't think they get, you know, what it means really to play every single play. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I've always heard that from the time that you started playing the game. Like, you got to play this game like it's the last play that you'll ever play, you know, because maybe it will be. I mean, I don't know if coaches don't like threat, you know, players like that anymore. But, you know, that was kind of like all my coaches were like, this could be the last play you ever play again. You know, you never know if somebody, you know, falls on your knee or if a bomb drops out of the sky. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I got you.
But that was kind of the deal, you know, and I just, and I think ultimately it can come back. You can look at that sort of that mindset. Okay, like playing, you know, every play like it's your last, and you can almost, you know, turn it and fit it in this whole thing with Scott, and when he first got here, and the whole, you know, no fear of failure, desire to excel sort of thing, and you know, that's his deal. But I remember the first time I heard him say it, I was like, oh golly, you know, I mean, I get, you know, you want your kids to play free out there, and you don't want them to be handcuffed, you know, with that little voice in the back of their head talking about, well, if I screw this up, then, you know, I'm going to be standing next to my coach. Well, I got news for you. I mean, fear, it can be a great motivating factor. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was, whether it was practice or a game, there wasn't a day that I went out there to practice that I didn't feel like there was, you know, another high school All-American, 2 or 3 of them that were behind me that they had recruited to come in and ultimately, you know, either take my job or take over. You know, when I left, but those guys, they wanted to play. They didn't care that, you know, I was a 3-year starter, or, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't care that you're all, you know, conference All-American player. They don't care. They're worried about themselves, and they want to play. They didn't come here to sit, you know, on the bench at Nebraska. So there was never a day that I felt like I didn't have to go out and compete at the highest level. You know, whether it was a Friday practice or it was Tuesday or it was a game day, I felt like I had to bring it every single day, every single play. And that's what I think when you get into that whole, you know, fear of failure sort of thing, I think in a lot of ways, and then you're watching, you know, this season and these past 3 seasons unfold, and you see a lot of the guys that are continuing to make the same mistakes over and over and over and over and over again, with there not really being any like harsh consequences. Do you know, like,
yeah,
I don't know how many times, you know, the snap has to hit the ground, you know, coming back from that center position, that will ultimately say, hey, you know what, boom, sit next to me, and you're there for the rest of the game. Do you know, like, sometimes you just got to bench guys, because in the long run, it will be beneficial for them. But if they know that they're going to, oh, well, I'll just sit, you know, he's going to make me sit a series or 2, and then I'll be back in there. I mean, boom, there you go. You lose all of that motivating, you know, fear. So I do think I would like to see Scott have more consequences to some of, you know, the action that's going on out there on the field.
No, I totally smell what you're cooking, and I get it. With the no fear of failure thing, you know, sometimes I wonder if that's a reminder for Scott to himself, because he admitted, you know, at the end of the Colorado game, at the end of the Northwestern game, he got a little bit conservative. He didn't want to make that mistake to cost the game. So there's a little bit of that in there as well. But also, as far as, bro, you can criticize things about anybody's career. I know for myself, I got banged up. I know you had a bunch of injuries. But the one thing I can always say, I always laid it out on the line. And then, you know, I had some good times in St. Louis. I had rough times. I went to D.C. I felt like I'd revitalized my career. Bam! Torn quad tendon. I never played again. You know, and the doctors even told me that's a routine surgery. Well, 6 knee surgeries later, not so much. So I completely get every play could possibly be your last, and that makes a lot of sense to me. Let's talk specifically about the defense. Okay, what have you seen from the Huskers defense so far this year? Do they look better, worse, roughly the same? Okay, how do they look to you so far this season?
Yeah, I mean, they've held up there pretty well. I mean, I think when Scott and Chins came in here, and I knew that they were going to run, this odd front, and I think what I was expecting was a little more of a modern look to it, so the way that kind of a Romeo Crennel kind of has devised, and you see kind of the things that they do, like in Pittsburgh or in Houston, and they a lot of moving parts. I mean, that's kind of the deal with when you run that 50 front, is that you can give an offense just so many looks. There's so much confusion. You got defensive tackles that are, long scooping from, 5 techniques, all the way down into the A gap.
Yep.
And you got guys looping around and guys, backers are coming. You got ends dropping. You know what I mean? I mean, you're in that defense. You know how it is.
Yep.
As opposed to, like, say, my first year down in Carolina, when it was Vic Fangio who was the coordinator at the time, but that defense and the way that we ran it, it was pretty much just set up for those linebackers. We pretty much were just trying to eat up offensive linemen up front, probably why both shoulders, were torn and coming out of the socket, by the 6th or 7th game of the season. But that was kind of like the old age sort of 50. And I think they kind of fall more in line with that, which, is disappointing. It's kind of that bend but don't break, but you need stud linebackers, right? You need dudes that can play. And I do like the way that Reimers has come along. I think Honus has definitely progressed in the right direction. But, you still got to get more out of the front. You still end up in a lot of sub packages. They run a lot of sub. I actually would love it if they just committed to, being a 40 team. I think it's one less big guy that you have to recruit every single year. And you and I both know that those big guys that can run on defense, the 300-pounders, that not only can run and are strong, but then you're learning, and we're watching it right in front of our own eyes, because so much was made when Akeem Green got here, right, about how he is this SEC-type player.
Yep.
And, the size and the strength. And he is, like when you're down there and you're, standing next to him, I mean, he's a massive guy who is built and he's in shape, but there's still a whole nother aspect. There's a whole nother, kind of part of a player's game, and that's upstairs in the head. Is he able to memorize, and does he know the entire playbook? Then on top of it, does he have the right mentality that you're looking for in all of your black shirts? I mean, that's maybe even the biggest thing. I mean, Charlie McBride used to tell us, he's just like, playing defense for me is 80% emotion, 20% technique. He may have been exaggerating a little bit. You got to know what you're doing. You can't just run around with like a chicken without your head. Yeah. But you gotta. It's a controlled sort of rage, and that's the thing that I would like to see more of out of those guys up front.
So I'm completely with you. When you talk about the mental game being huge and how Charlie McBride phrased it as 80% emotion, 20% technique, what I'll tell people when they ask me, I'll tell them, hey, there's 50 million people in America that would like to play football. There's nothing special about thinking you're special. The difference between thinking you're special and actually being special is the 6 inches between your ears, because that's what separates people. Okay, and it's funny, you talk about that 34 defense versus the 43 or whatever. I had imagined, a lot of stemming, a lot of movement, a lot of blitzing and things of that nature, because that's kind of what I saw at UCF. I felt like they were finding their footing because they were only in year 2 defensively at UCF. But they are a lot more straight up than I anticipated. And it's interesting because you talk about, your shoulders being out of the socket, taking on all those double teams so linebackers could play in Carolina. For me, I've had 10 major surgeries. I'm not talking about the little X. I'm talking about cut wide the hell open 10 times. I think you've had more from what I've heard. But I always say 9 of those are from the 3-4, one's from the 4-3. So that's part of the deal. But I got one last question for you. Okay, so the Huskers have 3 games left this year. You got Purdue, Minnesota, and then a crossover game, which I love, versus a team from the other division in the Big Ten on December 19th. What do you think the Huskers need to do to either turn this season around or at least gain some momentum heading into the 2021 season next year?
I think they got to win these. I would, obviously just being a fan and being an alumni, you'd kind of, you'd like for them to win all 3 games.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, I don't think that's unrealistic to expect them. Now, obviously, we take one game at a time. But as fans, we're just, talking here. Yeah, you would like to see them win 3. I think all 3 are certainly winnable. We don't know who that crossover game would be. But certainly the 2 that are scheduled for sure, I think, with Purdue and Minnesota, absolutely. Both of those teams are struggling as well. I don't see any reason why we can't. I don't know, what will happen going forward with the quarterback. If, it's kind of we've committed going back to Adrian and then just seeing, McCaffrey for a few series. Again, there's things that you do when you kind of first get here as a coach. I think taking over a program, you're willing to sacrifice, maybe some smaller successes because at the end, of the road, it's going to bring greater success. Now, he's gotten into year 3 here where, you're starting to lose, I think, that luxury of being able to do stuff like that. That's why I always thought, no matter who it was, whether it was Bo coming in here or Riley, when you come in to a new situation, you got to lay down the law. You got to make examples out of guys, whether, you think, some guys may get turned off by it. Maybe you get a few that are going to transfer. I think the kids that are going to transfer, they're going to transfer no matter what. Do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, Charlie McBride used to chew us a new one. But when we walked off the field, he was the guy who had his arm around our neck, telling us he loved us and that everything he was doing was because he wanted the best for us. And he was trying to make us into the best player, the best human. Do you know what I mean? And so there's a lot of things that kind of like that fall under that umbrella that I thought maybe Scott should have done. Obviously, it's his gig. I'm not stepping on anyone's toes. I'm always here, if he needs, to throw an idea off or a suggestion or something. He always, he knows where I am. But it's kind of his deal, and I'm going to support him, no matter what. I still believe that he is the right guy. I do think that, from just the way that he's running everything, I do think he is not unlike any other coach, wherein that he has to make some adjustments and maybe a change here, maybe a change there. That's all part of it. But this guy, I know Scott, I know who he is. I know what he's about. I still, like I said, I still believe in him. I still believe in what he's doing, overall down there. And, you just hope that it's going to click one of these days. I do think that they need to develop leadership better. Again, when I saw, some guys, especially, the underclassmen that were getting tabbed as captains, that to me is worrisome, because captain I always thought should be for, usually it's the seniors that have been through it. They've the ones that have committed the most time, the most effort, the whole blood, sweat, and tears thing. And okay, so you can kind of live with, okay, maybe a junior who has been a multi-year starter or something. Maybe he gets a nod because he is exceptionally, head and shoulders, better than everybody. He's got the strongest, voice in the locker room. But when you start to see guys that really haven't played, and have not been around the program, they're not seniors, and it's like multiple strikes against them, and they're being tabbed, captains. That to me is worrisome, because leadership, and I've always screamed this as loud as I could, but people sometimes, they just like to think it's about the Jimmies and the Joes, the X's and the O's, and it's all about which play you call, and it's not. And that, I know that, it's big part of it, but another big part of it is the guys that are leading you out of that tunnel. Do you know what I mean? Like the guys that are keeping the structure, the day-to-day, keeping stuff, the little stuff from getting to the point where, Coach Frost and his staff have to deal with it. You want to be able to police things without it ever really getting to the coaches, because once it gets to the coaches, then it takes on a whole different, sort of deal. But like just, little things. And I just don't think they have that true leadership. And that to me is when we talk about that culture, and mentality. When that leadership gets to where I think it needs to be, then you're going to see, I think, them get over that hump.
No, I completely get it, man. In my opinion, coaches are directors. The players should be the leaders. And I remember when I first got there, I mean, the Unity Council hasn't been around for a while. I know Frost is waiting till he feels it's the right moment, but the Unity Council was big. And I'm sure it was this way when you were there. You had to be a senior to be a captain when I first got there. Yeah, and then obviously, Callahan changed that, which, I wasn't too crazy about, but I didn't have a big vote at the time. So for me, those were things that I always liked and respected. It'd be cool to see those things again. But hey, man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you joining the show. I'm sure, like me, you'll be in front of the TV each and every weekend rooting on the Big Red. Hopefully they get this thing turned around soon. So thanks for joining me.
For sure. Anytime, buddy. I appreciate it.
All right, have a good day. Go Big Red, and always remember to throw the bones.
That's right, baby.
Thanks again to our sponsor, Nebraska Spine Hospital. Ladies and gentlemen, when it's your spine, you do not want to mess around, and experience matters. That's why you can trust the experts at Nebraska Spine Hospital, the region's only spine-specific hospital. They are the best at what they do.